Hi, welcome to Unit 2. Here we're going to talk about the basic principles of sensory physiology. So far, we have discussed that irrespective of the modality in which you are experiencing the world, vision, touch, smell, taste, hearing, we have sense organs to capture specific kind of information from the external. Eyes for light, ears for sound, tongue and nose for chemical, and skin for touch and pressure. Now, one thing that is common among all these sense organs that capture different kinds of external energy is that they are made of specialized neurons, or within them, there are some specialized neurons called receptors, specialized to capture specific kind of external energy. For instance, we have specialized neurons called photoreceptors in our eyes. Similarly, we have specialized receptors sensitive to and capture the sound waves in our ears. Specialized neurons called chemoreceptors in our tongue and nose, and so on and so forth. So the basic idea is that the receptors in our sense organs are the mean through which we take the external information in. What is common among them is that we have some sort of mechanism in way of specialized neurons that captures the external information, and that is the principle of transformation and representation. So just imagine you're experiencing the external world, but your experience of the external world is immaterial to the brain. For brain, it only receives the information in the form of electrical signals. That's how it will interpret the external world. We need to first understand the importance of understanding the processes, how receptors in these sense organs convert this external energy into electrical signals. We talk about how external energy is converted into electrical signals. Remember, a receptor is nothing but a neuron, a specialized neuron, to the brain. And so basically, what we'll talk about in this unit is specific to the physiology of generating and transmitting electrical signals. You see an object, the light that is reflected from that object is represented in the form of electrical signals. Brain. We'll talk about these things. I'll add another video here that gives you some basics of neurons. So the neurons are connected, and so the information has to pass through individual neuron. Then it reaches the next neuron, it's in the form of chemical signals. And we'll also talk about the mind body problem, which basically boils down to this idea that if electrical signals are a representation of the external object that you're experiencing visually, auditory, whatever it is, right, transfer into our conscious experience of the mind, right? That's a mind body problem. We're talking about we're talking about how the light that is reflected is converted to electrical signals, but at the end of this tunnel is this idea of how these representations, which are mere electrical signals representations in different parts of the brain, how does that translate into our conscious experience? Because electrical signals can be considered as body because it's that physical. Our conscious experience is beyond physical, right? My experience of having coffee, my experience of looking at the mug, that's all subjective experience. The question is, how is this physical electrical signal is resulting in our conscious experience? That's the mind body problem that we'll talk about. So this is in a nutshell what we will go over. And there will be another video added to this that would talk about the structure of the neuron, electrical signals. It will talk about the specifics of what do you say, uh, electrical signals. Electrical signals are also called action potentials. And once these electrical signals are generated, they'll be transmitted within a neuron and between neurons, right, in the form of chemical signals. And there are specific videos I'll add. But here we'll talk about the broader level discussions here. And so the same, the chemical neurons, chemical messaging and electrical messaging. That's how information gets transmitted between and within neuron, right? And then we'll talk about basically the idea of if this is touch, right? So your sensory neurons in your skin have captured the external energy into electrical signals, right? Now this is a touch, they have done that. Now this is also a touch, they have captured. So what is the difference between a touch, a pat, and a slap? How would the sensory neurons in your skin distinguish between a touch, a pat, and a hit? That's what we'll talk about. And we'll also talk about the nature of the representation itself, meaning that when you experience an object, what happens to this experience? That experience will be stored in your memories. For example, I'll ask you what this is. You'll say it's a coffee mug. The reason why you identified it as a coffee mug is because you have a concept of coffee mug in your knowledge. Now, the question is, where is it stored? How is it stored? What is the nature of that representation? Is it stored in single neurons or multiple group of neurons or different parts of the brain? That's when we'll talk about different theories of representation of the information in our brain, where we'll talk about modularity and other related constructs. And we'll also talk about imaging techniques. And again, I'll add the videos that are related to these, and you'll understand when you watch those videos along these. This is the bigger picture video. And this is where we'll talk about the representations. We'll also talk about the structural connectivity and functional connectivity between different brain parts. And we'll also, especially in the activity section, we'll also go over the fMRI kinds. So this would be, and the other one is the mind body problem. The P and the P here refers to the physical or physiological, and the big P refers to psychological, meaning that the small p, the physiological, how the electrical signals will give us a psychological experience. The small p resulting in a big P, meaning that how do the electrical signals translate into our conscious experience? That's the mind body problem.